So, hey, come on, stop. WebEx and me are fighting. Great. All right, so today we're going to be talking about documenting packages and using two tools. One is our Roxygen, it's actually our Roxygen 2 package, and the pkgdown package, which they're separate things, but they really work well together in creating a, well, pkgdown works with the documentation that you create with our Roxygen 2. You could create it in other ways, but our Roxygen is the standard now, and it's a really powerful way for you to do your documentation. Okay, so first off, a little bit of kind of where we're at in the workshops. So we are here in week 7, and this is the kind of the last of like the general sessions. So today, even though this may seem like a really kind of a topic that's very specific to people who are writing R packages, either code packages or data packages, I think it's really good information for just everyone to have, everyone who's going to be working in a team in which you're creating packages, these tools for creating tools, either for the public or just for yourself or for your team. And I think it's really good for everyone to see so that you understand, first off, what's possible, right? That's key, and then you can, how you're like, oh, okay, that's how you do it. That's how we should have ours structured also. And then also because within a team, a lot of different people will often be contributing to the documentation, so or to the reports. And so I think it's important to understand the structure so that you can be more efficient in how you contribute to, say, the documentation of whatever you're working on. Okay, and then next week is the last week, and next week is going to be pretty specific to more advanced topics for the people who are actually doing the nitty-gritty work of getting these packages online. And so there's a lot of kind of things that kind of hang up people who are developing packages, and you can waste a lot of time trying to sort these things out. So I want to spend a week just helping folks out who actually are the ones who are going to be decoding these things. I'm going to talk about your namespaces, which is something that can really trip you up, and then passing, your checks for your package, and then how to get your GitHub action workflows working, and some help on debugging that sort of thing. And then if I have time, I'll go into some things on like benchmarking, figuring out where your code is slowing down. Okay, great. And then, so that's next week is the end of the official 8-week. And then what I'm planning to do after that for a few sessions, if there's interest, is I'll just stay on and do like a Q&A, or I can talk about, not do a really well-prepared lecture like I'm doing now, but you just sort of discuss more generally and show you some, I can kind of do some things off the top of my head of some other topics. So these are topics that I thought about preparing. I do have some material prepared for like clustering tools and making raster plots, spatial plots, in R. Data wrangling, that kind of thing. Or I can just do like an open Q&A. So that's what I'm thinking to do for the week after July. Is I'll just come on, and whoever comes on, and you just ask what you'd like me to talk about. And obviously, if you give me a heads up ahead of time, I can be more prepared. Okay. So, great. Looks like, okay, good. We've got 35. Excellent. So, let's launch into our Roxygen. And here we go on the weekly notes. Great. Okay. So, let me get this kind of out of the way here. You over there so I can see what I'm talking about. Okay, great. All right, so logistics, as usual, please throw your questions into the chat, and anyone who can answer those, just jump in and help them out. And then also your comments have been really helpful there. I've integrated those, some of your comments on sort of tips that you have. I've added those to the weekly notes here. So if you go here and you go onto any of the weekly notes, right after the lecture, I'll add material based on our discussions during the session. All right, so documenting your code, your functions, and your data. So we know that's important, but it's a bit of a chore. And when I started coding, which has been forever, it really felt like it was kind of like ad hoc a bit. Like it's kind of like you sort of made up your own system of how you would document your functions. And what's evolved in R is that we now have, and this happened a while ago, is they thought about a really standardized way that we should document our functions. And originally, you would create these files in your man folder, and you would do that yourself. Like you would create those RD files, and it would be separate from your functions. So if you look at, this is just a package I'm working on right now at the moment. So, you have your R folder, and you have all these, functions. These happen to be data, but you can think of these as functions. And then you would yourself go and make a corresponding RD file. So they were separate. And people realized, okay, well, that's not the best system. It was really easy for things to get disconnected. You'd forget to update this help file. So what happened was they developed a system where you have a header file for your functions, and that header file is used to create the RD file. And they simplified the what would you call it? The sort of the format of how you write that. So your RD file, it has all this code and special structure that was easy to forget. And they realized, well, okay, we can have a computer who can do that, and we'll just make it a little bit easier for the person writing, so they don't have to remember all this special formatting for the RD files. So that's how it works now. And if you're writing functions, you're writing data, objects, you should adopt this. This is the standard. We do this because it makes our life a lot better. It is a little bit to learn, but it's not that hard. And I'm going to show you it will really, really save you time, down the line. No more writing a user manual, which a task which used to take us forever. That is now just kind of part of our workflow, and it's done for us from the help files, the headers that we're putting on our functions. Okay, So let's see. I'm going to show you, well, I have some examples here. Now I want to show you examples. Okay, I'll just show this one. This is from the Fisheries Integrated Toolbox. So you can see the different bits that are created from those header files that you put on your functions. Okay, so you see this. So if you were to go into functions and you see all this, this is all being prepared by pkgdown, and it does all this work from you from the header that you're going to be adding. And this is the thing that the header information on your function, this is what is getting written. Well, technically it's writing to this RD file, and then pkgdown takes the RD file and makes this. But this is the information that you're adding to the top of your functions. And then you're just adding that to all of them, so you have all that nicely documented. And then if you are within working from the R Studio, or working from the R command line, then the information that you're putting to the top of these functions is what you get if you type, question, something like that, right? What's showing up here, this is what is coming from the top of your functions or your data, depending what you're working on. Okay, where'd it go? Come back. Okay. Okay, great. So, so let's just jump in and let's do it and see how it works. Okay, so last week we were working on this package called My New Package, so I'm going to go there. Oh, come on. I thought it was there. Oops. Okay. Browse. Okay. Must have been working on something else. Oh, great. How can this not be here? Okay. Okay, that doesn't matter. We'll start a little earlier in the process. You'll get to get a reminder of how you clone something onto your computer. So I'm going to be cloning my new package right here. I'm going to do it through GitHub Desktop, just because that's how I've been doing it in these classes. I do have my RStudio linked to Git and to GitHub, so I could do it through RStudio, but I'm going to demonstrate doing it through GitHub Desktop, just as a reminder of how I've done it in class. So I'm just going to go here. I'm going to say add, clone, and because it's linked up to my GitHub, I could paste the URL, but since I'm working in my own stuff, I can just scroll down here and find it somewhere. Workflow, where are you? Goodness gracious. Okay, maybe I can't. My goodness, it's making it hard on me today. Copy link address. So I didn't see it on the left. I don't know why. So I just pasted in the URL. So now I have it. There it is. And now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to add it to my RStudio. So I just say new project, existing directory, browse. And then I go here and I find it. Okay. And I do that. Okay. So those are the steps that I needed if I'm working just through GitHub Desktop. And the nice thing about that is now everything links up when I go on to GitHub Desktop and I'm pushing things. It's all linked up to my GitHub. And it's important here to reminder when you're doing that you want to make sure you're cloning your own repository and not someone else's, because if you cloned someone else's, then you wouldn't be able to push up to their repo unless you have permission to do that. Okay, so let's get started here. Let's go through the steps of adding our Roxygen to this package. So let's look here. So when we look here, you notice it's just got this sort of hashtag up here. And the structure of an Roxygen header looks like this. So it's got this like hashtag apostrophe. You're going to have the title. I put @title here, and that people don't typically do that. So what they would do is they just show the just the title here, so they leave off this @ sign. The @ sign is there are these special names in our Roxygen. You could create custom ones, but that's not typical. Typically, you use just these standard ones, and you tell our Roxygen what section you're in using this @ sign here. So this is the title. Like I said, typically people leave off the @title because it's always the first line. And then you do a blank here with the hashtag that. And then the next part is your description. Again, people usually leave off the @description here. In fact, it's kind of rare to see the @description. I personally always put it there, but that's because I'm working with teams of people who are contributing to documentation, and they're not as familiar with our Roxygen, and I have found they get confused about what's going on. You know, that they forget that this is the title, right? Maybe they've never seen our Roxygen. So I always put it there just because of the nature of the teams I'm working on. Okay. And then these other ones, you do have to have the @ sign here, so you could have details if you want. @param are the arguments in your function, and the structure of that is @param, and then you put the name, like name1, and then you describe it, and then you do the other param, name2, and then you describe what it is. You kind of add whatever you want there. You could add examples to it, and then C also is common. And then you could have references. And then the @export means if you want this added to your namespace as a function that users would be able to run just by typing the function name after they load the function. So the only ones you really need here are, well, I guess you could just have title anyhow. You would typically have at least these, and then not details, and those. You need to describe your arguments. That's kind of the minimum that you would have. And then export, if you don't have that there, then you would have to do your package name : : So like typically you would have, I won't say typically, it really depends what your function is. Like internal functions, you might not export, but something that's, you want when you load the library that you want to see, you want to have that. Okay, so let's set up my new package to use our Roxygen. So you can see the steps that you have to go through. When I first started using our Roxygen, I just kind of had this written out on a piece of paper, what the steps are. Now I can just do it from the top of my head. But so there are a few steps, but you only do it once for your project. Okay, so first off, let's go on to hello. So first, I want to get rid of this stuff here, because that is not our Roxygen. Okay, so that one's okay. Right, so what are my steps that I need to do? Well, first off, I need to make sure that I have our Roxygen 2 installed. So I do. But if you are working along, you need to make sure that you do. Okay, so there, our Oxygen 2. So go ahead and install that if you have it. The next step that you're going to do is you're going to go up to Tools, you're going to go to Project Options, and you're going to go to Build Tools, and that's going to be unchecked if you haven't sort of linked your package up to our Oxygen yet. So you're going to click, what did you just do? Yeah, you're going to click that, and then this pop-up will show up. And so we're going to go ahead and click the vignettes. If you don't have vignettes, then you don't need to do that. And I always click Install and Restart here, and that way my documentation is rebuilt when I click Install and Restart. Okay, so you're going to want to do that. Say OK. The rest of this is all good. Okay, great. Okay, so we've installed our Oxygen 2. We've set up our build tools to create documentation using our Oxygen. And then next, we need to edit some things here. So you can see right there, it's saying our Oxygen note. And that is the version of our Oxygen that I have. So if I did add package version, our Oxygen 2, it's there. And yeah, I don't really normally futz with that. I think it's kind of weird that they do have the version here, and it may update automatically when you do build and install. That's entirely possible. I don't have to mess with that, so I think probably when I hit build install, it updates that when I update our Oxygen 2. Okay, so you have that there, and then we have this bit here. Markdown is true. We're going to add that also. Okay, so in the old style of our Oxygen, you couldn't use Markdown. So they had this special formatting if, say, you wanted to use a link. So, you know, like if you were writing our Markdown, if I'll show you down here just at the command line, just show you the code. Like if I wanted to do a link in our Markdown or Markdown, I would do, you know, text, and then parentheses, I would have the URL, right, HTTP, you know, okay, something like that, right? That's how I do a link in our Markdown. And our Oxygen 2 was, or our Oxygen was developed before people started using our Markdown, or using Markdown all the time, and so it had its own formatting for doing links and stuff. It used the old man file, the RD file format for that, and then people later said, well, that's crazy. Why can't we just use Markdown in our Oxygen documentation? And the developers a few years ago were like, yeah, that's a great idea. Now, if you want to use Markdown in our Oxygen, which is really common now, I definitely suggest it, you have to add this into your description file. Okay, so now we've done, let's see, we got that installed, we changed the tools, and then we've added this to our description file. Great, now we're ready to go. Basically, okay, we have one more piece to do. Okay, so you see this namespace file? When I created my new data, when I created the my new package using RStudio, it made this namespace for me. And basically what this little piece of code right here is saying is it's saying export all my functions. So I don't want that anymore. I want to use my Roxygen code to decide whether to export. So I don't want to have this namespace here. I want Roxygen to create it for me. You don't need to do that if you don't want to. Some people, they have certain reasons they want to do their own namespace, and so they would create their own, and Roxygen won't touch it if you have your own there. I think for most of the people on the call here, you can just let Roxygen create it for you. I only have one package out of my many that I have a custom namespace for. Okay, so I'm going to delete that because I want Roxygen to make it for me. Okay, so I think we're good. That's the setup. Like I said, it can be a lot to remember right in the beginning, but you just set it up once, and after you do it a few times, you get used to it. All right, so let's start adding our header. So I'm in my function. I'm going to add that my documentation. So there's that. Get rid of that. Okay. So the title is hello. And you notice as I hit return, it's automatically adding that header that, hashtag tick. So it's really convenient. So function. Okay. So that's my title and that's my description. This is how people would typically do it, but you could be really explicit and do title. That's fine. At description, that's fine. Okay, you can do it that way. You can do paragraphs. That's fine too. Okay. It's the at and then the tag that's telling Roxygen that you're moving on to something new. So I need to add this to say, what is this? My text. This is text print. Okay. There we go. And then I do want to export it. Okay. Great. So that's it. And now, do I need to do anything else? Yeah, so one comment here about the at param, I could do, add another argument like that. And Roxygen is not going to complain if I don't have this documented here. When you do check, so if you were to go to build and then check, it will complain that, hey, you have an undocumented argument. But Roxygen is not going to complain about that. Okay, so now I'm going to install and restart. I'm going to make this big so we can see what Roxygen is up to. Oh, thanks, Andrew. It does update. Yeah, I figured it did because I never ever think about that. So, yeah. Okay. So here we go. So this is useful stuff to see what's happening. So it says it is updating the documentation. So that's good to see. If you don't see that, then what happened is you forgot to go into Tools, Project Option, and then into your Build Tools, and you forgot to check that. And I forget to check that about 25% of the time when I'm setting things up, and I know that I've forgotten it because I don't see this. Okay, so it's doing that. It's loading it. Great. It's writing the namespace. Yay, that's what I want to see. I wanted it to write my namespace, and now it's telling me what it wrote. It's writing that. It's writing the namespace. Why didn't it write hello? That's interesting. Okay. And will not be overwritten. Okay, so see, that's useful information. You go back here. So I always, like when I'm starting to set things up, I'm always scroll back up and I look to see if I made any mistakes. So I did make a mistake. I delete that. So our Roxygen is not going to get rid of your work that you've custom made. So if you had a custom man file, for some reason you didn't want our Roxygen to make it, it's not going to blast that. It's only going to update things that it did. So I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, good. Let's install and restart. Good. Okay, here we go. All right, so now wrote the namespace. It's writing hello.rd. Excellent, writing the namespace. Okay, why did it do it twice? I don't know. Okay, probably it's writing it's got all the export calls. All right, so that's it. So now I can do $hello, and there we go. And you can see, you get the extra paragraph, you see the arguments, that information. And all I do is $hello, and it gets me that documentation. All right, so that's it. That's how easy it is. This is a super simple, I just kept it like the simplest possible header there. Once you start adding more stuff, I would say, or the way that I learned is going and looking at other people's Roxygen comments. So just go to any other package, or let's say go to a help file that you want to copy. So what do I mean by that? Go to a help file. So here, colors. Okay, that's not a great example, and that's really not what I want. Okay, let's do package I use all the time, forecast. And then if I do, okay, arguments, right. Okay, so this is not a very complex one, but it just shows you an example. So this is the the ETS. So let's say I looked at this. So that's the help file. And I was like, oh, wow, I want to see how they did this. Oh, wow, oh, look at those references. I'm going to show you how to do references in a second. Oh, hey, they have C also. I want that too. So then you're going to go to the source code for this. If you go on CRAN, you can look at the source code, or if it's on GitHub, a lot of them are now, you can just go onto GitHub and see the source code. And then you go to that function, and at the top of that function is going to be their Roxygen header, and then you learn from that. So that's how I did it, and I recommend that. And then also the help file for our Roxygen is really good. So this is it. You can see this is just on CRAN, and it's the vignettes. So it's, what is it, RD formatting, I guess? Yeah. This is the one I really like, and it shows you how to kind of set things up using the R Markdown. Not R Markdown, it's Markdown. I keep saying R Markdown, but it's just Markdown formatting. Okay, and it shows you lots of examples. So you just copy that, and then if it runs into problems, it's going to complain up here, and in my experience, the errors that it throws you are pretty good. You can, figure things out. Okay, great. So let me go back. Where was I? Okay. So I'm not going to go into any more details about the headers, just because like once you kind of got the hang of like a super basic one and got that working, it's actually really easy to make them more complex because there's so many examples out there, and the vignettes on Crayon are great. You can just kind of copy what they have. So the one thing that is a little different is the documenting data, and I talked about that last week. So just go on to last week where I showed is the second half of the notes. I talk about documenting data for a data package, and I give examples there. So you can just go there to see an example of that. Obviously, you'll see that in the help files too. And I gave some link to some other help in last week's lecture. Okay, adding references. This is a nice feature if you have a lot of references that you need to be putting in your documentation. You can add that easily using a references.bib in BibTeX format, and you'll use the RDPack package. And then once you do that, you can use code like this, insert ref. What is this code saying? So in the BibTeX entry, you give names to your references. So this is the name to that reference. Oh, so here's a BibTeX entry, for example. So you might have something like this in your references.bib. And so that's the name of this. And you just say insert ref, what package the references.bib is in. So it could be from a different package. Actually, for my papers, I have my references. I have a library that has like all the sort of generic functions that I use in papers, and then I have some bib files there that are pretty common for papers that I write. And so I will have not the current package I'm working on, but I would be referencing sort of this my kind of master Eli, references package. So that's how I do it. But you might have references that are just specific to that particular package that you're working on, and then you could have this references bib in there. Did I tell you where to put it? Yeah. So you want to put that in your inst folder. And all right, and then in your references section, when you see the output, do I have an example? See if I have an example. See if I can show you an example here. Oh, right. I did it here. Did I do it here? Yeah, ETS. So, yeah, here's an example right here. So this is how you would do that. So Hinven wouldn't have written these directly like this. It's using a bib file with these. Okay, great. All right, any questions about that, or Oxygen, before I go? Have I tried using Zotero for references in R? Yeah, I did. Yeah, I have. So I don't know if most of them do it. I've used a lot of the major sort of reference kind of platforms, and they typically allow exporting to BibTeX format. So I actually use EndNote just because I like that. And then I just I have my EndNote library, and then I export to BibTeX format. But I've done it on Zotero also. Any other questions? All right, great. So now we're going to talk about, sorry, one more question. Is there a way to link to references? Yes. That code There may be a new way with Markdown. That's entirely possible. But note that this old style, so this is the non-Markdown style, this will work. In fact, all the old formatting will work in your Roxygen comments. So what that means is if you're using, you can mix up, do some R Markdown, some not R Markdown in your Roxygen comments, that's fine. How does it work with multiple functions in the same script? Yeah, so multiple functions in the same file. Okay, so I wouldn't recommend that, but if you do have that, it does work fine. You just add your, or I'm pretty sure it works fine. You just add your Roxygen headers to the top of each function. So that's really where I have seen that the most is when people are documenting data. They'll often have one file that's called like data.r, and then they have all their data documentation in there. So they've got an Roxygen header for one data set, and they have the name of the data set under it. And then they have another Roxygen header for the other data set. So, so that works fine. So I'm assuming it also works fine if you had multiple functions. But you also might want to look at the alias tag. So, for example, if I were to do, what's an example of, I think this is an example. Okay, yes. All right. So, so you see rnorm is an example where you have one help file for multiple functions because they're all very related, and you're going to do that with the tag alias. So you would have you might in your script, right? You would have in one file, you would have all these functions defined, and then at the top you just have a header on one of them, and then you have the @alias listing for the other ones. Just go into the Roxygen documentation, and they'll show you how to do that, if you need to do that. Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to move on to package down, last 15 minutes, and then at the Q&A at the end, we can go into more questions about our Roxygen. Need to. Okay, so package down. So package down is a really nice way, really easy way to create a website for your package. And so basically it's like creating a user guide, a web user guide for your package. And it's really powerful. It really enhances the how easy it is to interact with the documentation for your package. And if you're hosting it, say on GitHub, it's really easy to put that online. So here's an example. This is this is in the NIMS Fish Tools, the Fisheries Integrated Toolbox, and this is one of their packages. And so this is the code here, and they made this nice landing page. And it's all these that documentation that you've written. The package down makes this into this page like this. I'm going to show you another example. So this is a current project that I'm working on. It's a data project. So it's got a whole lot of different data in there, and package down creates this website for me from the data and the data documentation, and you know, it nicely, you know, I set it up to nicely sort things into the different species here. I also have sort of vignettes with some data on it. And so, you know, pkgdown is doing all this for me. I didn't write this website. I just wrote a little one line of code, and it's creating that from my documentation. So let's see how to do this and how to get this up on GitHub. Yeah, let's go back here. Okay, great. So I'm going to use this package. I talked a little bit, well, I mentioned it last week, but I didn't use it last week. I do use this package, but I think you need to be a little careful when you're starting, because you need to understand what it's doing and like go line by line through how it set things up, and then you may need to change things, and you're going to see an example of that. But it's nice because it's going to do all these steps that you need. So let's add this to, let's make a pkgdown site for my new package. Okay, so I'm going to use this package. So use this and use package down. Oh, and I love this. It tells you what it's going to do. Yay. Okay, great. Config file. Okay, oops. Hey, come on. So now, I'm going to go back here. I want to go through here. Package. Yeah, okay, so config file. Okay, pkgdown YAML. Okay, that's fine. Destination directory. Excellent. Yep, that's all good. So I like the defaults. Great, so now we need to walk through here and see what it did. Okay, so setting the active package, fine. Okay, adding that to, okay, so build ignore. Okay, so that's fine. I don't need this as part of my package. So that's what the rbuild ignore is. So these are files you don't want in your bundled package that people would be installing. So I don't want them to install this website. Okay, so that's good. Adding package down to build ignore. So that's if I have a folder called build package down. Okay, that's good. Okay, adding docs to .git ignore. Oh, I don't want that because I want to push this up to GitHub. Okay, so I don't want that. I got to change that for sure. Okay, record your URL in the pkgdown config file. Optional but recommended. Okay, fine. I'm not going to do that. Modify package down. Yeah, I will later. Okay, great. So I got to remember to take that docs off the .git ignore. If I don't do that, I'm not going to be able to push it up to GitHub. Okay, so it's all set up. Excellent. So now we can use package down, build site. There we go. And it tells us what it's doing. Add some things. Yay, there it is. Okay, so this is the default. So you see, it just made it. And now I've got this, and these are my two functions. Great, go back here. Yay, so that's just the default. I didn't do anything, and it just created that for me. Nice. So now let's push this up to GitHub and get this online. Get this really boring web page online. So let's go here. Right there, so I need to remember to go here, and I need to get rid of that because otherwise my web page that I just created is not going to get pushed. Save that. I'm going to go to GitHub Desktop, and now we can see, okay, so it's got that, yay, got that. Okay, and here's the docs. Here's my website created there. So let's push that up, package down, get to master. Going to push that. Let's go back over here. There we go. Great. Okay, let's reload that. And now we got our docs. Okay, great. It's there. Now, how do we make that like live? So to make that live, we're going to go into settings. We're going to scroll all the way down. Github Pages, that's what we want. Going to click that. And source, so it's on the master branch, and it's in the docs folder. Save. It's going to take a moment, but let's open that in a new tab. Okay. Let's see. Okay, it's not up yet. It will be soon. There it is. Okay, and that's it. Now I have my web, user manual online, and I can point people to that. And what I typically do is in my repo, my description here, I am going to go here. I always edit here. It gives you the option here, and if anybody knows how to make it accept that, let me know, because it suggests the right thing, and I can't get it to actually use that. So I always have to copy and paste. Short description. This is just a test package. Okay. Here we go. Great. Okay. So there we go. Okay. So that's it. That's how easy that is. Let me get this chat back. Okay, great. All right. So last 5 minutes. Let's look at getting some NOAA branding on there. So, that was a really basic package down. And if we go on to, this, here's the one I'm working on. This is a data package. This is for an official product that I'm working on. This is going to be public facing. So you notice it's got a lot of NOAA fisheries features, and thanks to the Fisheries Integrated Toolbox folk for working on this branding, getting the palettes and stuff. They put a lot of work, and this is work that I have adapted from their Integrated Toolbox resources. So you see the right colors. You see you got this disclaimer here. You see you got this nice little footer here. And this is all in the resources on the Fisheries Integrated Toolbox material. And what I have done is I created a template and right now I have it hosted on the workshop, but this is going to be migrated over to the a toolbox organization. So it's not going to live here permanently, but I'll update the link on my material when I change the location of this. And this package down template has all the branding stuff integrated into it. So let's look at what that is. So it has the palette, NIMS palette. It's got this disclaimer here. It's got this footer here. It has the license that we need to have. It's got the license. This is for code. I think we may use something different for data, but if it's code, this is what we use. These aren't really needed, but it does have a couple badges that you can have. Great. And then it has kind of a format up here. I mean, you might change that, but, depending on your team, but it doesn't have just the defaults. So it's all set up with all these features. And what you can do is just clone this and use this as a template for your own package. And all you need to do is go in here to R and put your own functions there with your own Roxygen there. And then when you build the package down site, it's going to have all that NOAA branding on there. So it's all set up for you. Okay. So I want to walk through these sort of the NOAA branding features in a package down. So let's see what we got here. Okay. So here are the things that are changed. So first off, I have this folder called Package Down, and I've got this extra CSS here. So this is, so you see, this is that NIMS palette that our colleagues with the Fisheries Integrated Toolbox developed. Okay, so we can just use that, and that gets us all our colors and everything. And then, let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, yeah. So we got this README file here, and it's got, here's the bit of code here. Down here, you see it's pulling in the disclaimer that's coming over from the integrated toolbox. That I like it that way because I don't want to be thinking myself personally exactly how that disclaimer is worded, and if the lawyers over at DOC decide they need to tweak that, I just want that pulled in automatically in my sites. I don't have to go to every single repository and pull that in. So this is in the resources repository. There's the disclaimer there, so I'm pulling that in. There's also this standardized footer that they developed, so I'm just going to pull that in. I want that standard across my repos. I don't want to be remembering to update every one of them. Okay, so that's just on the bottom of the README. So that's there. The license, yes, did have to pull this file off the Integrated Toolbox Resources repository. That, let's go, wanted to show you, okay, well, I'm not going to show you right now. So you can find in the notes for last week my link to that resources repository for Fisheries Integrated Toolbox. I'll put that in the notes for today too. Okay, and the other big thing that's changed is this package down YAML. When I built it for my new package, I just accepted the default, but that's not very interesting one, and I would like to customize that. And package down gives you a lot of power to customize the look of your navigation bars. It's mainly the navigation bars, and then the pages for your references and stuff. There's so many possibilities here. I definitely suggest just going to other people's package down sites and looking at what they've done. I personally have not found the help files for package down all that useful. I mean, they are useful, but what I would like to see is like a whole bunch, like a gallery and a whole bunch of different examples, and they don't have that at the moment. So I have to like search out people's package down sites and look at their underbar package down YAML. But what I put in the template is I put kind of like an outline that should be a good place to start. So this is the structure of your nav bar. It tells you what's there. And package down has some defaults for things like home, reference, but you can also make up your own sort of tabs, and then, but then you have to define those down here, and this is how you define what it is. Okay, so this is the structure at the top, what's in the top, and then if you want to modify those components, you do it here. You can also have these drop-down menus, and that's how you do it here. This document shows you how, like if you wanted to link to PDFs that you created, this is how you're going to do it. The only thing to know here is that if you are linking to something like a PDF, you're going to have to put that into the docs folder yourself. I mean, you could also put it in a folder within the docs folder, so you could have something called refs, you know, and then this would be refs/scoping.pdf. You can do that, but you personally need to put that into the docs folder. And what's good to know is, like, once pkgdown creates that docs folder, it's not going to go in and, like, wipe everything out. If you put something in there, it's not going to destroy your stuff. It's just going to add its stuff there. Another cool thing is that pkgdown allows you to, like, organize your references. So these are the help files. So in this case, you know, let's say I had functions that had the word plot in them, and I wanted all my plot functions together. I can do it like that. And then I had things that are functions, and I called them function, put it like that. So in that data one where I had, like, it broken out with Chinook and Steelhead and, you know, Coho, it looked just like this. So I just had contents contains Chinook, contents contains Coho. I don't have to go in there and personally put in the names of those. That would be a nightmare, right? Like, because this data changes, right? I just use code like this, and it organizes it for me. All right, super. Okay, so that's it for the lecture material. My recommendation: just start playing around with this. And if you want to make the NOAA branded pkgdown, go ahead and clone this. Actually, I want to really quickly show you again how you clone, because I've had some people forget how to do that, and it's a little non-intuitive. So if I'm here, how I clone something, say this isn't mine, right? So you want to clone this thing and onto yours. So what you do is copy the URL, and then you're going to hit this plus up here, and it's called import. And you import that here, and then you give it your own name. So this is you're going to be logged in, right? So it's going to say you. And then if you have any organizations that you're part of, so obviously I have a lot, I could put it in one of these. So that's how you're going to clone this. Just click that and hit import. All right. So that's it of the lecture material. Now let's just open it up for any questions that you have. Oh, badges. Abby said something here about the badges. Yeah, use this, make those badges. Yeah, that's a handy little function there. Let me show you what that code looks like. Here it is. Okay. So I'm in my README, and pkgdown. So like you notice the badges appeared over here. Right here. So pkgdown will kind of try to figure out what your badges are, and it'll put them in this section here. So you notice they're not here. If I were to go to the repo, you see them right here. But on the pkgdown side, it takes them off. I find that a little annoying, but that's what it does, and it puts them over here. And if you look at the README, you don't have to have this badges start and badges end, but I put it there because pkgdown sometimes can't figure out what your badges are, but if you put them in between this, it will know, oh, okay, fine, all of these are badges. So basically, the badge code is, this is the text that's going to appear. So let you see that this says RCMD check. That's that text right here. And that's what it's going to take, I think. That one just says release. Interesting. Okay. But this one here, if I were to change this, it would change that text. And then the next is what the badge looks like. And then, so in this case, it's going to be passing or failing. And then you can make it a link so it takes you to somewhere. The badge part is actually just that part right there. The rest of it is if you want to be able to click the badge and go someplace. So when I add badges, I just find somebody else's badge and I copy it, because remembering all this, I get it wrong all the time if I try to do it myself. All right, great. More questions about Roxygen, package down, anything if you've tried it, anything you've gotten hung up on? Okay, since everyone's quiet, while you're thinking about this, I'm going to show you how to make a vignette. So definitely you want to use this because it is hard to remember exactly how to set these up. So you want to use, so if I want to make a vignette, what's a vignette? Let's see an example of a vignette. Did I do any vignettes? Did I write one? Oh, I think I did. Oh, yeah. Okay, here's a sample vignette. So it's like a long form documentation, just kind of write something up. So it's like an R Markdown file. Put whatever you want there. So for this data file that I'm making, I have these long form here where I take the data and then I make various plots that the people I'm working with want to see. So tables and stuff. So that's an example of long form. So how do you want to set that up? Yeah, I don't have that here. Is you're going to use this. So I think it's use. Yep, there we go. Use vignette. Okay. So it's going to create the folder. I think it should create it for me, and then creates a template for me. And it wants me to give it a name. I'm just going to call it test. So let's see what it did. Adding knitter suggest to, that's good. Setting vignette builder to knitter, okay, good. Adding int not doc to get ignore. I don't know why it did that, okay. Creating the vignettes folder, great. Great, all good. Adding our markdown to suggest, okay, great. So this is really nice because I forget to do half these things. And then it writes this template for me. There it is. And yay, it set up this header the way that it's supposed to be. Great. And then I hate these options that it adds here. I always just kill that. I don't like that. So that little bar that I deleted there, that is not necessary. I don't like its defaults. So this part is the necessary part. You know, plot 1 to 10. Okay, great. So now I have my vignette. If I want to change the name of this, I can. That's easy, but I need to be a little careful to change it here and change it here. So, and I'm not 100% sure it will like having a dash there, so I'm going to do this. Great. So now I have my little vignette. And now let's make sure when you check the project options, build tools, and get here, configure. Okay. So remember, this little checkbox is not checked by default. So if you forget to check that, and then later you add vignettes, they're not going to be building, and that'll be frustrating. So if you see that, whenever you like seeing problems going on with our Roxygen, I always go to tools first, and I just check that everything's checked that I want. And the things that I typically forget to check are either vignettes or install and restart. So let's do this. Updating. Yep, go down here. Updating vignettes. Yay, rebuilding that. Okay. And now I have my vignettes in here, and I can view that. Great, and there's my vignette. And when I go here, there is a command to show the vignettes from the command line, and I'm not able to bring that to my mind at the moment. But there's a line there. But also, if I do package down build site, it's going to see that, and it's going to add a tab for that. So you see package down saw that I had that vignettes there, and now it adds that there. So without me really doing anything or telling it anything. It's smart enough to figure that out. Okay, question about our Roxygen. What is the standard for referring to your own functions within other functions in the package? Okay, so that's not actually a question about our Roxygen, but it's just a question about referring to your own functions within your functions. So let's see. Let's go back here. So I have little forecast and I have hello. So because I'm working in my own package, all of my own functions are going to be available to my functions, even if I didn't export them. So like if you have internal functions that are not intended for the users, not intended to be called from the command line, let's put it that way, you will be able to use those within your functions. So I can do so I can add that here, and I don't need to say my new package. I don't need to do that. I can just do it here, just like that. So that's fine. I can definitely see situations where you would want to do my new package, where you would want to use that. And those would be situations where it makes it clearer to somebody reading your code, maybe your future self, makes it really clear where that function's coming from. So like if I write it like this, I, in the future, immediately know that hello is a function within my new package, rather than, you know, oh, wait, where's that coming from? And so, like, you look at this, well, oh, okay, Eli, it's probably obvious that hello is there, is within this package, but what if I named my function filter? Well, goodness, there's a lot of filters out there, right? So if I did question mark filter, there's one in deployer, there's one in stats. When I just wrote my own, which one is it that I'm wanting to use? So in that's a situation where, you know, using, you know, my new function, sort package, like that, so it makes it really clear where that function is coming from. Okay, great. So, okay. Right. But in terms of our Roxygen code, let me show you how you can add a reference to a function. I'm going to go to here, onto hello. So if I want to reference a function, let's say I want to put it in my description, the other function is, I can just do okay. So that, if you're working in our Markdown, that's what it's going to look like. If you're working in the old style, and you'll see this a lot, it's code link. I think that's it. Something like that. Pretty sure that's it. I've written that line of code all the time, but it looks like I've already started to forget it. I think that's it. So what it's doing is it's formatting it into code style, and then it's making a link to that function. And so this, putting the parentheses after that is important because our Roxygen is going to recognize, oh, hey, that's a function. You want that in code formatting. So that's what's going on here. Notice I don't have any our Roxygen comment here, so I need to add that for this to work. Okay, need to get that off of there. There we go. Great. So now let's do install and restart. Save. Okay. Oh, wow, amazing. I didn't make an error. Okay, great. So now if we do question mark hello, now you see it's got the link here. And it goes to that. And I'm pretty sure this one will too. Yeah, that one does too. Great. So let's go back here to the files here. So, so you notice that both of these worked, but this one looks a little different in that it's got the parentheses there, and then, it's got a little space there. So what's kind of evolved as the standard for documentation for your links is that, well, this is actually in general when you're writing our Markdown. If you're referring to a function, you're going to have the parentheses afterwards like that. And if you were linking to something like a data object or a class, you wouldn't have that. So this right here is recognizing it's for a function and it's putting it into that standard formatting. If you wanted to do it like this, what you'd have to do is you'd have to remember to put the parentheses right there. And I think it's got a little, is that a little space? Almost looks like a little space. Okay, great. So like that. Okay, so Abby, hopefully that answered your question. If not, go ahead and just unmute if you want or post more in the chat. Okay, repeat the command that launched the Vignette file. Yep. Okay, so another handy thing that that can help you remember the names of things. So when I do use this, and you see it pops up a bunch of options, I use that all the time. So I remember that, oh, okay, I remember it started with use. What did Eli say? Okay, use something. And now I can like scroll through this and you see all the different things it helps set up. And then you can, hover over it and read about it. So that's really handy. So use this is really great for like setting everything up. Just really pause before you run the use this command, like do the rollover and read that little yellow information to make sure, yeah, I agree, that's what I want to do. And then be aware that it's going to set up the defaults, but you do need sometimes to change those. Notice like how I had to go into .gitignore and remove docs from move docs from there because I wanted that docs to be pushed up to GitHub. Okay, can you repeat the workflow that launched the pkgdown website? Launch the pkgdown website. Which part? So Karen, do you mean getting it up on, getting it up here, like getting it live? Something that looks like this? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Great. So so the workflow is okay. So I've got my new package. I have I've run pkgdown build site, and it's created this docs, and I pushed that up to GitHub. So now your site looks like this. You want to ensure that that docs folder is there. Remember that you may need to reload after you do a push to see the changes. So do a couple reloads. Okay, so it's there. If that's not there, then you forgot to remove docs from your .gitignore file. And remember, okay, so let's take a look here. So here's my .gitignore. You might not see those because these are hidden files. I always have show hidden files here, so show hidden files. So if you're not seeing those, go into more, make sure that's clicked. Okay, so now you can see there's that .gitignore, and so by default, pkgdown is going to have docs in here, and what that would say is it's not going to push that docs folder up, so you need to get rid of that. Okay, great. All right. Okay, great. So, but everything looks good. It's there. And now what I do is go into Settings, scroll way, way down till you get to this part, Github Pages. Click that. Then this is the part you're going to edit. So you're going to change this to Master. It's going to be set at None. And then you're going to change this from Root to Docs, and then you hit Save. And the first thing that's going to come up, it said it's ready to publish. Just wait a little bit. It takes a few minutes. It doesn't take that long. Then you can click this and you'll see your site. Great. Okay, so question, do you always use a docs folder for documentation, or do you use GitHub Pages, or both? Pros, cons? Yeah, I always use docs, and just because I don't think there's a pro or a con. You can set it up either way. It doesn't really matter. I just personally, it works nicely for my workflow, and then I don't forget what's I don't forget that I have a package now because I see the docs there, and I'm like, oh, right, oh, great, this is the pkgdown site. So I immediately recognize that versus, if I go onto the branch. So, like, maybe remember from one of my first two lectures about the kind of the feature of when you switch back and forth with branches, that it annihilates all your timestamps of any files that you've changed. And so I am really cautious of when I use branches, because Git Git doesn't really think of timestamps the way that we do. I think of timestamp as, hey, that's the time when I personally modified that file. And that's not how Git thinks about that. Git thinks about it as, oh, the last time that I, Git, modified that file. And if you have a file that's on a branch, so it's on main, but it's also on the other branch, Git is modifying that file to switch between the branches. So obviously it's going to update the timestamp. And that always drives me nuts. So that's why I am always cautious with branches. And I go back and I set up Git so that it shows the timestamp that I want it to show. So it shows the last time Eli modified it, not the last time Git modified it, because that's how I think of timestamps. But it's a little bit of a hassle to set up that that checkout. So that's why I'm cautious about using branches, just because it involves extra work for me to set up this thing for the timestamps. So, but does that matter for package down? No, that doesn't matter for package down, because you wouldn't have files that are on the GitHub branch that are also on your master. So it wouldn't matter for package down. So that's kind of my long-winded answer about why I don't use GitHub branch, the GitHub branch. It's not because it's a problem for package down. It's because I avoid branches in general, just because it involves some extra work on my part. Okay, great. Any other questions? Anything else you want me to show you? Doesn't have to be about package down and our Roxygen. There's something that is confusing. Okay. Great. So, preview for next week. So next week it is going to be, it says advanced topics, but this basically means that it is topics for people who are actually doing the coding for the R package. So like, you know, like, what's the example here? Yeah, so like for this package here, this is a team project. I am the one who's doing the coding in the background to like set up the whole structure, but the people who are writing all this information, those are different team members, right? These are the data stewards who are getting all this together and, you know, getting all this data. Those are different team members who are working on that. So I have people who are interacting with this repository, but so they're, you know, either, you know, they're interacting with the documentation and the data, but I am the person who's writing the structure. So next week is going to be for those people who are making their own packages. You are writing the code for the package, and you are the one who are going to be doing things like, you know, hitting this install restart, and you are the one who is going to be hitting this check and getting your checks to pass. So next week is going to be specific for those people. It's not going to be like super advanced stuff, but it's going to be stuff that you need to know to, you know, like get your checks to pass. So like you see here, I'm run this check. The package, this little new package, like it works just fine, but you notice, oh goodness gracious, I got three warnings here, right? It's not, they're not necessarily all that bad, but sometimes they are bad things that you need to fix. And also sometimes you'll have errors that pop up from your install and restart. And I'm going to talk about kind of the really common ones that can really mess you up, and it has to do with how you set up your namespace. Those are the main ones. I'm also going to talk about how you do workflows, set up GitHub workflows. I'm by no means an expert in this, but I have worked with them and I can help you get started with them. So, how do you get that RCMD passing there? Which is that's a pretty common one. And then I also have a get this here, go on this. So like on this one, this has some more complicated examples of workflows. And this repository has a workflow that rebuilds the website whenever the data are updated. So that way the website is reflecting whatever data the data people are putting in here. And if they update the documentation, then that triggers it to rebuild this website. All right, so great. Have a great weekend. And yeah, I'll see some of you next week.